The night is quiet beside the Nile. The river moves gently through the darkness, carrying cool air across the sleeping land. Far from the noise of crowded markets and temple ceremonies, small villages rest beneath a sky filled with stars. Mud brick homes stand silent. Palm trees sway softly in the night wind. Somewhere in the distance, a dog shifts in its sleep. A fisherman turns beneath a woven blanket. A tired farmer breathes slowly after a long day beneath the sun. The desert waits beyond the green fields. Its sandy hills seem endless beneath the moonlight. Tonight, we leave behind the stories of kings and battles. We walk quietly into the lives of ordinary people. We follow a man whose name has long disappeared from history. No monument remembers him. No statue carries his face. Yet his hands helped create some of the most beautiful places in ancient Egypt. He is a tomb wall painter. And this is the slow story of his life. Long before sunrise, while darkness still covers the village, the painter begins to wake. The air is cool for now. This coolness will not last. Soon the sun will climb above the eastern horizon. Soon the heat will spread across the land. Soon every stone and every wall will hold warmth. But for a little while, the world remains calm. The painter opens his eyes. His home is small. The walls are made from mud brick. The floor beneath him is hard-packed earth. Nearby, his wife and children still sleep beneath simple blankets. A clay oil lamp rests in one corner, now cold and dark after burning through part of the night. He listens quietly. Nothing rushes. Nothing demands attention. The village wakes slowly. Outside, a rooster calls. A neighbor opens a wooden door. Someone coughs in the darkness. The painter sits up and rubs tired eyes. His body carries the memory of many years of work. Painting walls inside royal tombs may sound gentle, but it is labor. He spends long days standing. He climbs ladders. He stretches his arms for hours. He grinds minerals into powder. He mixes pigments. He breathes dust. He works beneath flickering lamps inside narrow chambers. By morning, his muscles often feel stiff. By evening, they feel heavier still. Yet this work feeds his family. And so another day begins. The painter steps outside. The eastern sky has begun to change. Dark blue slowly becomes pale gray. The stars fade one by one. A gentle breeze moves across the village. Nearby, a woman kneads dough for bread. Another family prepares a small fire. The smell of smoke drifts through the cool air. Children still sleep. Most workers have not yet begun their day. The painter walks toward a public well. Others are already there. Builders. Stone workers. Laborers. Men who carve blocks. Men who transport supplies. The village contains many skilled hands. Together they help create the tombs hidden deep within the desert cliffs. Everyone moves quietly this early. Voices remain low. No one has much energy before sunrise. The painter drinks water. He washes his face. The coolness feels good. Soon enough, sweat will return. He knows this. Everyone here knows this. Life in Egypt follows the rhythm of heat. People rise early because the sun eventually becomes difficult to ignore. By the time the first sunlight touches the tops of distant hills, the painter has already eaten a simple meal. Bread. Perhaps a few dates. Maybe some onions. Nothing fancy. Nothing unusual. Food is fuel for work. The family eats together. His children speak softly. His wife reminds him to bring home extra grain if payment arrives today. He nods. Such conversations happen often. Life depends on small practical things. Grain, water, oil, sandals, cloth, repairs. The painter kisses his youngest child on the head before leaving. Then he joins other workers heading toward the desert. The journey is familiar. He has walked this path many times. The green fields slowly disappear behind him. The fertile land narrows. The desert expands. Ahead stand rocky cliffs that glow gold beneath the rising sun. Somewhere inside these cliffs, hidden from ordinary eyes, lie unfinished tombs. These places are not built for the living. They are built for eternity. Yet the people who create them remain very human. Workers laugh. Workers complain. Workers become tired. Workers grow old. The painter knows many of them. He has shared meals with them. He has watched some begin apprenticeships. He has watched others retire. A few never returned after illness. Life continues. The tombs continue. The work continues. As the morning brightens, groups of laborers arrive at the work settlement. Small workshops stand nearby. Storage rooms hold supplies. Water jars rest beneath shaded areas. Tools are carefully organized. Everything has a purpose. Everything supports the creation of a place that future generations may never fully see. The painter enters a workshop. The smell greets him immediately. Stone dust. Wood. Oil. Pigments. Old plaster. It is the smell of his profession. Several assistants are already working. One grinds red ochre with a stone tool. Another prepares yellow pigment. A third carefully mixes black paint made from carbon. The painter greets them. Their conversations remain relaxed. There is no rush. Tomb decoration follows careful schedules. Mistakes are difficult to fix. Every line matters. Every figure matters. Every color carries meaning. Nearby rests a collection of minerals gathered from different places. Some create deep reds. Some create bright yellows. Some produce rich blues. Others create green shades that resemble reeds growing beside the Nile. The painter examines each mixture carefully. His eyes know these colors well. He has spent years learning them. Perhaps his father worked in a similar trade. Perhaps an older master taught him when he was young. Knowledge passes quietly from one generation to the next. Many skills are never written down. They survive through practice, through observation, through patience. The morning continues. Soon the painter enters the tomb itself. A cool darkness surrounds him. Outside, sunlight grows stronger. Inside, shadows remain. Oil lamps flicker along walls. The air smells different here. Dry. Still. Ancient. The tomb chamber is unfinished. Plaster covers sections of wall. Guidelines have already been drawn by scribes. These red lines help organize future artwork. The painter studies them carefully. Scenes from daily life will appear here. Boats on the Nile. Workers harvesting grain. Families bringing offerings. Priests performing rituals. Animals grazing. Birds flying above marshes. These images are not random decorations. They help create an ideal world for the tomb owner. A peaceful world. An ordered world. A world where food never disappears and rivers never run dry. The painter understands this purpose. Though he is not wealthy, he helps create visions of abundance. His brush moves slowly, steadily. A single line appears. Then another. Hour after hour he works. The chamber remains quiet. Only occasional sounds break the silence. A brush against plaster. Footsteps. Soft conversation. The crackle of lamp flames. Time passes differently inside tombs. Without the sun overhead, the hours feel softer. Yet the body still notices. The painter's shoulders ache. His neck becomes stiff. He pauses. Drinks water. Returns to work. Outside, the desert grows hotter. Inside, concentration continues. The figures on the wall slowly emerge from blank plaster. A fisherman appears. Then a boat. Then reeds. Then birds. Life painted inside a place built for death. There is something peaceful about this work. The painter rarely thinks about grand history. He thinks about making clean lines. He thinks about proper proportions. He thinks about whether enough blue pigment remains. He thinks about whether his sandals need repair. Small concerns fill ordinary lives. Even lives connected to royal tombs. By midday, workers gather for food. They sit in shaded areas. The sun now shines fiercely overhead. Heat presses against every surface. The desert seems to shimmer. People eat slowly. Some rest with closed eyes. Others share stories. The painter listens more than he speaks. A stonecutter complains about sore hands. A laborer talks about his growing family. Someone mentions rising grain prices. The conversations are familiar. Comfortingly familiar. When people work together for many years, routines become part of life. After eating, many workers remain seated for a while. No one rushes back into the heat. The body needs moments of stillness. The painter watches distant cliffs. Wind moves small streams of sand across the landscape. Nothing appears hurried. The desert teaches patience. It has watched countless generations come and go. Kings rise. Kings disappear. Workers arrive. Workers vanish. The cliffs remain. Eventually the afternoon work begins. The painter returns underground. The lamps are relit. Fresh plaster waits. Fresh outlines wait. Fresh hours wait. His brush touches the wall once more. And slowly, quietly, beneath layers of stone and silence, another small piece of eternity begins to take shape. The afternoon settles over the desert like a warm blanket of light. Outside the tomb, the sun hangs high above the cliffs. The stone faces of the hills glow with pale gold and faded orange. Heat rises from the ground in gentle waves. A distant worker walks slowly along a narrow path, carrying tools balanced across his shoulders. His shadow follows him closely across the sand. Inside the tomb, however, the world feels different. The painter stands beneath a low ceiling covered with unfinished sketches. The chamber remains cool compared to the blazing desert outside. Small oil lamps cast soft circles of light onto the walls. Their flames move gently whenever a faint current of air finds its way through the passageways. The painter dips his brush into a small bowl of pigment. Carefully, he fills the feathers of a painted bird. Each stroke must remain steady. A trembling hand could spoil hours of work. He has learned patience over many years. When he was young, he often wished to finish quickly. He wanted to prove himself. He wanted older craftsmen to admire his skill. He hurried at times. He made mistakes. The walls taught him otherwise. Stone rewards patience. Plaster rewards patience. Color rewards patience. Everything inside a tomb moves slowly. The painter no longer fights this rhythm. He follows it. A nearby apprentice watches him work. The boy is still learning. His hands are eager. His eyes miss small details. The painter remembers being exactly the same. Without speaking much, he demonstrates how the brush should move. The apprentice nods. Then he tries again. This time the line appears smoother. Not perfect, but better. That is enough for today. Knowledge passes quietly in places like this. Not through speeches. Not through grand lessons. Through observation. Through repetition. Through long hours beside experienced hands. The afternoon continues. More figures emerge across the wall. A farmer bends over a field. An ox pulls a plow. A woman carries baskets. Children stand beside bundles of harvested grain. The painter knows these scenes well because they are scenes from real life. Many of the people represented on tomb walls resemble neighbors he has known for years. The artists do not always paint specific individuals, yet they paint familiar activities. The rhythm of farming. The gathering of food. The care of animals. The movement of boats along the Nile. Ancient Egypt depends on these ordinary routines. Without farmers, there is no grain. Without fishermen, there is less food. Without laborers, there are no buildings. Without craftsmen, there are no decorated tombs. The painter understands this. His work feels important, but it is only one piece of a larger world. As the hours pass, the smell of lamp oil grows stronger. Dust settles lightly on sandals. The painter stretches his back. A dull ache travels through his shoulders. He has felt this ache for many years. At first it worried him. Now it feels almost familiar. Part of life. Part of work. Part of growing older. Nearby, another artist prepares blue pigment. Blue is precious. The color reminds people of water, sky, and life. The painter glances toward the bowl. The powder shines softly in the lamplight. Even after all these years, certain colors still catch his attention. There is something calming about seeing bright shades appear against pale plaster. A blank wall slowly becomes a living scene. The transformation feels gentle. Almost magical. Yet it happens through ordinary effort. Through hands. Through tools. Through patience. Outside, the afternoon slowly begins to soften. The worst heat of the day starts to fade. Long shadows stretch across the desert floor. The workers inside the tomb cannot see this change directly, but they sense it. The air shifts slightly. The feeling of the day changes. Eventually a supervisor walks through the chamber. He examines the progress carefully. His eyes move across the walls. He studies proportions. He checks colors. He nods occasionally. The painter continues working. Praise is pleasant, but steady employment matters more. Most craftsmen understand this. A good day's work brings food home. That is enough. The supervisor eventually leaves. The tomb grows quiet once more. The painter finishes a final section before cleaning his brushes. One by one, the tools are stored away. Pigment bowls are covered. Unused plaster is inspected. The lamps continue flickering softly. For a few moments, the painter stands still and studies the wall. The figures seem almost alive in the warm light. Boats float across painted water. Birds hover above painted reeds. Workers carry painted baskets. Entire worlds exist upon the stone. Perhaps centuries from now, someone will look at these scenes. Perhaps they will wonder about the people who created them. Perhaps they will never know his name. The painter does not think much about fame. Most workers do not. They think about tomorrow's tasks, tomorrow's meals, tomorrow's journey. The future remains close and practical. As evening approaches, the workers begin leaving the tomb. The painter steps outside. Sunlight greets him again. The brightness feels different now. Softer. Gentler. The sky carries warm colors near the horizon. The desert no longer burns with midday intensity. A breeze drifts through the valley. Dust swirls across the path. The workers gather their belongings. Conversations become more relaxed. The hardest hours are finished. Some laugh quietly. Others remain silent. Everyone feels tired. The kind of tiredness earned through a full day of labor. The painter begins the walk home. His sandals scrape softly against the path. Ahead, the fertile lands beside the Nile wait in the distance. The green fields appear almost miraculous against the endless desert. As he walks, he notices farmers finishing their work. Some guide animals toward shelters. Others collect tools. The day slowly folds itself toward evening. Birds move through the sky. Palm leaves rustle gently. The painter reaches the edge of the cultivated land. Water channels reflect the lowering sun. The Nile itself moves quietly beyond them. The river never seems hurried. Day after day. Year after year. Generation after generation. It continues its journey. Many workers find comfort in its presence. The river provides food. The river provides transportation. The river provides life. The painter pauses briefly beside the water. Not for long. Just long enough to enjoy the cooler air. The surface reflects gold and orange light. Small ripples drift across the current. A fisherman guides his boat toward shore. The scene feels peaceful. Simple. Unchanging. Soon the painter continues home. The village has become livelier now. Children run through narrow pathways. Neighbors speak outside their homes. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The smell of baking bread drifts through the evening air. For many workers, this is one of the best moments of the day. Work is finished. The heat is fading. Families gather again. The painter reaches his home. His children greet him eagerly. One asks questions. Another proudly shows a small toy made from scraps of wood. His wife smiles from beside a cooking fire. The day's worries seem lighter now. Not gone. Simply quieter. The evening meal is modest. Bread. Vegetables. Perhaps a little fish if fortune has been kind. Everyone eats together. Stories from the day are exchanged. The painter speaks about work. His wife speaks about neighbors. The children talk about everything. Their words flow freely. The sky darkens. Stars begin appearing overhead. One by one. Just as they did yesterday. Just as they will tomorrow. After eating, many villagers remain outside for a while. The cooler air feels pleasant after a hot day. Some sit on low stools. Others rest directly on woven mats. Conversations drift through the darkness. Nothing urgent. Nothing dramatic. Only ordinary life unfolding beneath the stars. The painter leans against a wall. His muscles feel heavy. His hands are stained with traces of pigment that never seem to disappear completely. He studies the night sky. The same stars watched his parents. The same stars will watch his children. There is comfort in such thoughts. Life changes slowly here. The seasons arrive. The Nile rises. The Nile falls. Harvests come and go. Families grow. Workers age. The world continues. Eventually the village becomes quieter. Doors close. Lamps dim. Voices fade. The painter enters his home. The oil lamp casts a soft glow across the room. Shadows rest upon the mud brick walls. His children are already becoming sleepy. One by one they settle beneath blankets. The painter lowers himself onto a simple sleeping mat. His body welcomes the chance to rest. Tomorrow will bring another walk into the desert. Another day beneath painted ceilings. Another collection of careful brush strokes. Another ordinary day in an extraordinary place. Outside, the Nile continues flowing through the darkness. The wind moves gently through the palms. The stars remain above. And slowly, as the village drifts into sleep, the tomb wall painter closes his eyes and follows the quiet rhythm of ancient Egypt into the night. The night passes slowly across the valley. Above the sleeping village, countless stars shine with a quiet steadiness. The air feels cooler now. The heat stored within the mud brick walls gradually slips away into the darkness. Palm leaves whisper softly whenever a breeze moves through them. Somewhere near the riverbank, water touches reeds with a gentle sound that almost disappears before it can be heard. The tomb wall painter sleeps. His breathing is slow. His hands rest quietly beside him. For a few hours, the weight of work leaves his shoulders. The unfinished figures waiting inside the tomb remain hidden beneath the desert cliffs. The brushes lie still. The pigment bowls rest untouched. The lamps have gone dark. Everything waits. Ancient Egypt often feels busy during the daylight hours. Farmers bend over fields. Boats travel along the Nile. Builders carry stone. Merchants move goods from place to place. Children run through village pathways. But at night, much of the world becomes peaceful. The darkness softens everything. Even worries seem smaller. The painter sleeps deeply until the final hours before dawn. Then, slowly, he begins to wake. At first there is only silence. Then comes the distant sound of movement. A neighbor opening a door. A rooster greeting the coming morning. A faint voice somewhere beyond the wall. The village is beginning another day. The painter sits upright. His muscles feel stiff. The soreness from yesterday has not completely disappeared. It rarely does. Years of painting have left their mark upon his body. His knees sometimes ache. His shoulders often feel tight. His fingers occasionally grow sore after long periods of careful detail work. Yet he is fortunate compared to some laborers. Stone haulers carry enormous weight. Miners work deep underground. Farmers spend endless hours beneath the open sun. Every profession brings its own burdens. The painter rises carefully. A cool breeze enters through the doorway. The eastern sky has begun its slow transformation from darkness into light. His wife is already awake. She kneels beside a small grinding stone preparing grain. The steady sound fills the room. A simple breakfast is prepared. Nothing lavish. Nothing unusual. The same kinds of food that have nourished families for generations. Bread remains at the center of daily life. Without it, many households would struggle. The painter eats quietly. The day has barely begun, yet he already knows much of what it will contain. Work. Heat. Dust. Conversation. More work. Rest. Sleep. Then the cycle will begin again. There is comfort in such predictability. Not every day brings surprises. Many days simply unfold according to familiar rhythms. Outside, the village slowly awakens. People emerge from their homes. Some carry baskets. Others carry tools. A few guide animals through narrow pathways. Children rub sleepy eyes while following parents through the morning light. Smoke begins rising from cooking fires. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the cool air. The painter enjoys this moment. Before the heat arrives. Before labor begins. Before the desert sun takes control of the day. Soon he joins the growing stream of workers heading toward the cliffs. The journey feels familiar beneath his sandals. He knows every bend in the path. Every cluster of rocks. Every place where the wind gathers small dunes of sand. The desert changes slowly. Its shapes shift over time. Yet it remains recognizable. The cliffs ahead stand silent against the brightening sky. Their shadows stretch across the landscape. Inside those cliffs, hidden chambers wait patiently. The painter walks beside several friends. Most have known each other for years. Some are builders. Others carve stone. Others prepare plaster. Their conversations remain simple. One man mentions repairs needed at home. Another speaks about his daughter's upcoming marriage. A third complains about a stubborn donkey that refuses to cooperate. No one discusses great political events. No one debates royal matters. For ordinary workers, daily concerns feel far more immediate. The condition of a roof. The health of a child. The cost of grain. These are the subjects that fill most conversations. As the sun climbs higher, they arrive at the work settlement. Activity has already begun. Workers move between storage rooms. Tools are distributed. Water jars are inspected. Instructions are exchanged. The painter enters a workshop where pigment preparation is underway. The sight always pleases him. Bowls of color rest upon low tables. Red. Yellow. Black. Green. Blue. Each shade created through careful effort. Some pigments come from local materials. Others travel long distances before reaching the workshops. Every color carries value. Nothing is wasted. The painter examines today's mixtures. He stirs a small bowl gently. The pigment must feel right. Not too thick. Not too thin. Experience teaches such things. Books cannot fully explain them. Only years of practice can. Nearby, an apprentice grinds mineral fragments into fine powder. The repetitive motion continues steadily. Stone against stone. Again and again. The sound blends into the background of the workshop. Many important tasks in ancient Egypt involve repetition. Grinding grain. Mixing plaster. Carving stone. Preparing paint. Slow work often creates lasting results. Eventually the painter gathers his tools and enters the tomb once more. The transition always feels remarkable. Outside, sunlight floods the valley. Inside, darkness wraps around him. The air grows cooler. The sounds of the world become distant. Only the flickering lamps accompany him deeper into the chamber. The unfinished walls seem to emerge from the shadows. Figures painted yesterday wait quietly for his return. A fisherman. A farmer. A flock of birds. A boat gliding across painted water. The scenes appear almost suspended between creation and completion. Today he will continue bringing them to life. The painter studies the wall carefully before beginning. Every detail matters. The position of a hand. The curve of a reed. The spacing between figures. Balance is important. Harmony is important. The images must feel calm, orderly, complete. He begins working. Brush touches plaster. Color spreads across the surface. Minutes become hours. Hours become part of the day. Time inside the tomb often feels different from time outside. The steady rhythm of painting creates its own world. The painter becomes absorbed in small details. A bird's wing. The folds of a garment. The shape of a basket. One task leads naturally into another. Sometimes he hardly notices the passing hours. At other moments, his body reminds him. His neck grows stiff. His back aches. His eyes become tired from concentration. Then he pauses. Drinks water. Stretches. Returns to work. The process continues. Nearby, another artist decorates a different section of wall. The two craftsmen occasionally exchange comments. Nothing lengthy. A suggestion. A question. A quiet observation. Most of the time they simply work. The tomb itself seems to encourage silence. The chambers feel almost sacred. Even unfinished, they possess a certain stillness. The painter often wonders about the people who will eventually rest within these spaces. He does not know them personally. They belong to higher ranks of society. Officials. Nobles. People whose names will be remembered longer than his own. Yet the painter spends countless hours preparing their eternal homes. There is an odd closeness in that. He paints scenes meant to accompany them forever. He fills walls with images of abundance and peace. Though they may never meet, his work becomes part of their story. The morning passes. The painted world expands. More birds appear among the reeds. More workers gather grain. More boats move across painted waters. The tomb becomes fuller, richer, more alive. Eventually the call for the midday meal arrives. Tools are set aside. Workers emerge into the sunlight once again. The brightness feels almost overwhelming after hours underground. The painter squints against the glare. The desert stretches endlessly before him. Heat shimmers above the sand. The sun now dominates the sky. Most workers seek shade immediately. Meals are shared. Water is passed around. Some workers stretch out upon the ground and rest their eyes. Others talk quietly. The painter sits beneath a shaded shelter and watches the landscape. Far away, the fertile strip along the Nile appears green and inviting. Beyond it lie villages, farms, and river life. Beyond that, more desert. More cliffs. More sky. The world feels vast. Yet his own life remains centered around simple places. His home. His workshop. The tomb. The river. Day after day. Year after year. And somehow that seems enough. A warm breeze moves through the settlement. Dust drifts lazily across the ground. Several workers doze briefly during the break. The painter closes his eyes for a moment as well. Not fully asleep. Just resting. Listening. Feeling the day pass around him. Soon enough, work will begin again. The pigments will be mixed. The lamps relit. The brushes lifted once more. and the silent walls waiting inside the tomb will receive another layer of careful color beneath the steady hands of a man whose name history may forget, but whose work will remain long after the desert winds have erased countless footprints from the sands of Egypt. The afternoon returns quietly to the valley. The painter rises from his brief rest beneath the shade and takes a slow drink of water. The clay jar feels cool against his hands. Around him, other workers prepare to return to their tasks. Some adjust sandals worn smooth by years of walking. Others gather tools or finish the last bites of bread from their midday meal. The desert remains bright. Heat rests upon the land like a heavy blanket. Even the distant hills seem sleepy beneath the afternoon sun. The painter follows a familiar path back toward the tomb entrance. The opening appears small against the vast cliffs, almost hidden among the stone. Yet beyond that entrance stretches a world of corridors, chambers, and unfinished walls waiting for careful hands. As he steps inside, the sunlight gradually fades behind him. The cool air returns. The sounds of the outside world become softer. Soon only the glow of oil lamps remains. Their light dances gently across the walls. Shadows shift. Colors appear warmer. The painter takes his place before the section he has been working on for many days. Progress comes slowly. Large paintings are not finished quickly. Every figure requires attention. Every detail requires patience. The wall before him contains a scene from life beside the Nile. Reeds rise from painted water. Fish move beneath the surface. Birds stand among the marshes. A small boat carries workers through the calm river landscape. The painter begins with the reeds. His brush moves steadily. The green pigment spreads across the plaster in narrow strokes. Each reed must appear natural. Not identical. Not stiff. The plants should seem alive. As if a gentle breeze from the river could move them at any moment. Hours of work can be spent creating things that appear simple. This is one of the quiet secrets of craftsmanship. The easiest looking details often require the greatest care. Nearby, another painter works on a different chamber. The soft scratching of brushes occasionally echoes through the passageways. Otherwise, the tomb remains peaceful. The stillness allows thoughts to wander. As he works, the painter remembers his own childhood. He remembers running through village paths barefoot beneath the morning sun. He remembers helping carry water. He remembers watching older craftsmen at work and wondering how they created such beautiful images. At that time, he never imagined how many years he would spend inside tombs. He never imagined how familiar these chambers would become. Life often unfolds quietly. One season follows another. One task follows another. Without noticing it, years pass. The painter smiles faintly at the memory. Then he returns his attention to the wall. The work must remain precise. A mistake now would create extra labor later. His brush moves from the reeds to the feathers of a bird. The bird stands near the riverbank, frozen forever within the painted scene. Its wings are folded. Its eye watches the water. Tiny details bring life to the image. Visitors may never notice each one. Yet the painter notices. That is enough. The afternoon continues. The air inside the tomb remains cool compared to the world outside, but the lamps generate a small warmth of their own. Their smell fills the chamber. Oil. Smoke. Dust. Pigment. These scents have accompanied the painter through much of his life. To others they may seem ordinary. To him they feel familiar. Almost comforting. Many years of work have connected these smells to routine and purpose. Further down the corridor, several apprentices carry fresh supplies. They move carefully through the narrow passages. One carries plaster. Another carries pigment. A third balances a small oil lamp. The painter watches them for a moment. Their faces are younger than his. Their steps quicker. Their shoulders lighter. Yet one day they too will feel the weight of many years of labor. One day they will guide younger workers. One day they will tell stories about old projects and forgotten masters. Time moves in this way. Quietly. Without asking permission. The painter returns to his work. The painted boat now requires attention. Its curved shape stretches across the lower section of the wall. The vessel resembles countless real boats that travel the Nile every day. Boats carrying grain. Boats carrying fish. Boats carrying stone. Boats carrying families from one village to another. The river ties much of Egypt together. Even here, deep inside a tomb, its presence remains. The painter carefully adds details to the vessel. A rope. A pole. The outline of wooden planks. Simple additions. Yet each one helps complete the story unfolding across the wall. As the hours pass, the tomb grows quieter still. Many workers become absorbed in their tasks. Concentration settles over the chambers. Only occasional voices break the silence. A question. A brief instruction. A soft greeting. Then stillness returns. The painter likes these moments. The calm allows him to focus. His thoughts slow. His breathing settles into a steady rhythm. Brush. Color. Wall. Brush. Color. Wall. The pattern repeats. Outside, the sun slowly begins its descent toward the western horizon. The workers inside cannot see the changing sky, yet they feel the day moving forward. Time reveals itself through small signs. A growing hunger. A stiffness in the back. A sense that evening is approaching. The painter stretches his arms. His shoulders ache. Years of reaching upward have left their mark. Still, there is satisfaction in seeing the wall gradually transform. Where blank plaster once existed, scenes now emerge. Life appears where emptiness once stood. The tomb grows richer with every passing week. Eventually a supervisor enters the chamber. He walks slowly, studying the work. The painter steps aside for a moment. The supervisor examines the painted figures. His eyes move carefully across the wall. The birds. The reeds. The boat. The workers. After a long pause, he nods. A simple gesture. Nothing more. Yet it communicates approval. The painter returns to work feeling quietly content. Praise in this profession is often brief. The work itself matters most. The supervisor continues down the corridor. His footsteps fade into the distance. The lamps continue flickering. The afternoon continues unfolding. The painter finishes several more details before finally setting down his brush. He studies the wall once again. There is still much left to do. There is always more to do. Tomorrow will bring new tasks. New colors. New sections of plaster. The thought does not trouble him. Large works are completed little by little. The same way a harvest is gathered one bundle at a time. The same way a home is built one brick at a time. Patience remains the true companion of every craftsman. At last, the signal comes to end the day's labor. Brushes are cleaned. Pigments are covered. Tools are gathered. Workers begin leaving the chambers. The painter takes one final look at the wall before following the others toward the exit. The sunlight outside has softened considerably. The fierce brightness of midday is gone. Long shadows stretch across the desert floor. The cliffs glow with warm colors. Gold, amber, soft orange. The air feels easier to breathe now. A gentle breeze moves across the valley. Many workers pause briefly outside the tomb entrance. Some talk quietly. Others simply enjoy the feeling of open space after hours underground. The painter stands silently for a moment. The sky above seems enormous. A flock of birds crosses the horizon. Their shapes drip through the fading light. The sight brings him a sense of peace. Soon the journey home begins. Sand crunches softly beneath sandals. Workers spread out along the path. The painter walks at an easy pace. There is no reason to hurry. Evening waits ahead. Home waits ahead. The Nile waits ahead. As he descends toward the greener lands near the river, the smell of growing crops replaces the scent of desert stone. Water channels reflect the colors of sunset. Farmers finish their final tasks before darkness arrives. The world feels calmer now. Slower. The busiest hours have passed. The painter watches a pair of oxen returning from the fields. A farmer walks beside them. Neither seems hurried. The day is ending exactly as it should. When he reaches the village, familiar sounds welcome him. Children playing. Neighbors speaking. Cooking fires crackling. The smell of bread drifting through the air. Simple things. Yet these simple things form the heart of daily life. The painter smiles as he approaches his home. Another day has passed. Another small section of the tomb has been completed. Another collection of brush strokes now rests upon the walls hidden deep within the desert cliffs. And as the evening settles gently over the Nile Valley, the slow rhythm of ancient Egypt continues, steady and peaceful beneath the gathering stars. Evening settles softly across the Nile Valley. The last light of the sun lingers upon the distant cliffs, turning stone into shades of gold, copper, and pale rose. Shadows stretch across the fields. The heat that ruled the day begins to loosen its grip upon the land. A cooler breeze drifts from the river, carrying the scent of water, reeds, and damp earth. The painter walks through the village at an unhurried pace. The path beneath his sandals is familiar. He has traveled it thousands of times. Past the same homes. Past the same walls. Past the same small gardens where herbs grow in clay pots. Many faces greet him as he passes. A neighbor carrying water jars. An elderly fisherman repairing a net. A woman returning home with a basket balanced upon her head. The village is neither large nor wealthy. Yet it feels alive. Every person contributes something. Every household follows its own rhythm. The painter reaches his home just as the sky begins to darken. His youngest child notices him first. Small feet hurry across the yard. A smiling face appears. The child wraps thin arms around his waist. The painter laughs softly. The tiredness of the day remains, but moments like this make the burden lighter. Inside, preparations for the evening meal are nearly complete. A clay oven still holds warmth from baking. The smell of fresh bread fills the room. A pot simmers quietly over a low fire. The painter sits upon a woven mat and stretches his aching legs. His wife notices immediately. "You worked high on the wall again today," she says. The painter smiles. She knows his movements well. After many years together, she can often tell what kind of work he has done simply by the way he sits down at the end of the day. He nods. There was a section near the ceiling. She understands. No further explanation is needed. Many conversations in long marriages become wonderfully simple. The family gathers together to eat. The meal is modest. Bread, vegetables, a little fish brought from the river, water stored in cool clay jars. Nothing luxurious. Yet after a day of labor, it tastes satisfying. The children talk freely. They describe small adventures. A game played with friends. A stray goat that wandered through the village. A bird's nest discovered near a palm tree. The painter listens quietly. Their stories seem important because they are important. Childhood is filled with small discoveries. Each one feels large to the person experiencing it. The evening continues. Outside, darkness slowly spreads across the valley. The stars begin appearing overhead. One by one. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The night sky above ancient Egypt often appears vast beyond description. Without bright lamps filling the landscape, the heavens reveal themselves clearly. The painter steps outside after the meal. Several neighbors have gathered nearby. Some sit upon low stools. Others rest directly upon woven mats. The air feels pleasant now. Conversations drip through the darkness. A farmer speaks about the coming season. A fisherman mentions changing river conditions. Someone else wonders whether repairs will be needed before the next flood. The painter listens. He contributes occasionally. Most evenings are not filled with dramatic events. Most evenings are simply shared. People spending time together before sleep arrives. These moments matter. Perhaps more than many realize. The stars continue brightening overhead. The painter leans back and studies them. When he was younger, he often imagined the future. He wondered where life might take him. Would he become a skilled artist? Would he support a family? Would he earn respect among other craftsmen? Many of those questions have already been answered. Yet new questions always replace old ones. Will his children find good work? Will the harvest be strong next year? Will his hands remain steady enough for painting? Life continues to unfold. One season at a time. 1 year at a time. A gentle breeze passes through the village. Palm leaves rustle softly. Far away, a dog barks once and then becomes silent again. The Nile flows steadily through the darkness. The river never seems to sleep. Boats may stop moving. Villages may grow quiet. But the water continues its journey. The painter finds comfort in this. Some things remain dependable. The stars. The river. The rising and setting sun. The return of the seasons. Much of life changes. Some things endure. Eventually the gathering begins to thin. One family returns home. Then another. The night grows deeper. The painter enters his house once more. The children are already sleepy. One has fallen asleep while listening to a story. Another struggles to keep tired eyes open. The painter smiles. He remembers feeling exactly the same when he was young. His wife extinguishes one lamp. Then another. The room grows dim. Only a faint glow remains. The family settles onto sleeping mats. Outside, the village grows quiet. Inside, breathing becomes slow and peaceful. The painter closes his eyes. His body welcomes rest. Tomorrow will arrive soon enough. And it does. The hours pass. Darkness slowly retreats. The first hints of dawn appear beyond the eastern horizon. The painter wakes once more. Another day begins. The cycle continues. Morning preparation feels almost effortless now. Years of repetition have made every movement familiar. He washes. He eats. He gathers his belongings. Then he begins the walk toward the desert cliffs once again. The early air feels cool against his skin. Birds move among the palm trees. The village gradually awakens behind him. Ahead, the tombs wait. As he walks, the rising sun paints the landscape with soft golden light. The fields glow. The river sparkles. The distant cliffs emerge from shadow. The beauty of the morning never completely loses its power. Even after seeing it thousands of times. Perhaps especially after seeing it thousands of times. Some things become more meaningful through repetition. Not less. The painter reaches the work settlement shortly after sunrise. Activity has already begun. Workers greet one another. Supplies are organized. Water jars are inspected. The familiar rhythm of labor returns. Inside the workshop, apprentices prepare pigments. Stone grinding against stone creates a gentle, steady sound. The painter pauses beside one of the younger workers. The apprentice looks frustrated. A batch of pigment has become too thick. The consistency is wrong. The painter examines the mixture. Then he quietly demonstrates the correction. A little water. Careful mixing. Patience. The apprentice watches closely. Soon the pigment improves. Relief appears across the young man's face. The painter says very little. Most lessons do not require many words. Good teachers understand this. The apprentice thanks him. Then returns to work. The painter gathers his own supplies and enters the tomb. Cool darkness surrounds him once again. The lamps flicker. The painted figures wait. The unfinished wall stretches before him. Yesterday's work appears exactly as he left it. The birds remain frozen in flight. The reeds stand motionless beside painted water. The boat rests eternally upon its painted river. Today new sections will receive color. New details will emerge. New pieces of the larger vision will take shape. The painter studies the wall for several moments before beginning. This pause has become a habit. He likes to understand the work before touching brush to plaster. Rushing often creates mistakes. Patience creates better results. Finally he dips the brush into pigment. The first stroke of the day appears. Then another. Then another. Slowly. Carefully. The wall begins changing once again. Outside, the sun climbs higher into the sky. Inside, the quiet labor of creation continues. Hour after hour. Brush after brush. Color after color. And deep within the silent chambers hidden beneath the desert cliffs, the life of the tomb wall painter flows onward with the same steady rhythm as the Nile itself, calm and enduring beneath the endless Egyptian sky. The morning settles gently into its familiar rhythm. Deep inside the tomb, the painter continues his work while the desert sun climbs steadily higher above the valley. The chambers remain cool compared to the heat outside. Oil lamps flicker softly along the walls, casting pools of golden light that dance across unfinished scenes. The painter stands quietly before the wall. His brush moves with patience earned through many years. A line appears. Then another. A shape begins to emerge from the pale plaster. Every image starts this way. Not with a grand vision. Not with sudden beauty. Only with simple marks placed carefully beside one another. The painter has always liked this part of the process. There is something comforting about watching a blank surface slowly become a story. Today he works on a scene showing workers carrying baskets filled with grain. The figures are small compared to some of the larger images elsewhere in the tomb. Yet they require just as much care. Each person must appear balanced. Each basket must sit naturally upon a shoulder. Each step must suggest movement. The painter studies real workers every day. Their posture has become familiar. The way tired shoulders lean slightly forward. The way feet settle into the ground after hours of labor. The way hands grip ropes, tools, and baskets. These observations quietly find their way into his paintings. Nearby, an apprentice carefully prepares fresh plaster for another section of wall. The young worker moves slowly. He has learned that rushing often creates problems later. The painter notices this improvement. Months ago the apprentice hurried through every task. Now patience is beginning to grow. Experience changes people in subtle ways. A craftsman is shaped by his work as much as he shapes the materials before him. The morning continues. The chamber remains peaceful. Only the soft sounds of labor drip through the corridors. A brush touching plaster. A footstep upon stone. The faint crackling of lamp flames. The painter enjoys these quiet hours. They allow his thoughts to wander. Sometimes he remembers old projects. Tombs completed many years ago. Walls he painted when his beard was darker and his hands moved faster. Some of those chambers now stand sealed. Their work finished. Their owners resting inside. Others may still be waiting for completion. Large projects often require many years. Sometimes longer than expected. Time moves differently in places built for eternity. The painter glances toward a nearby wall completed several months earlier. Its colors remain rich beneath the lamplight. Deep reds. Warm yellows. Soft greens. Strong blacks. The figures seem almost alive. Not because they move, but because they contain so much careful attention. He feels a quiet satisfaction when looking at them. Not pride exactly. Something calmer. The feeling of knowing a task has been done well. Many workers seek this feeling. A farmer feels it while looking across a healthy field. A fisherman feels it after repairing a strong net. A builder feels it while examining a finished wall. The painter finds it here. Among colors and stone. Outside, the day grows warmer. Inside, the work continues. A supervisor enters the chamber carrying a small writing board. He pauses beside several sections of the tomb, making notes. Records are important. Materials must be tracked. Progress must be measured. The organization behind such projects often remains invisible. Yet many people contribute beyond those who paint and carve. Scribes keep accounts. Officials distribute supplies. Workers transport materials. Each person plays a role. The painter greets the supervisor politely. The supervisor studies today's progress. After a moment, he nods. Then continues down the corridor. The exchange is brief. Simple. Professional. The painter returns his full attention to the wall. The grain carriers are nearly complete now. Their baskets have been painted. Their clothing outlined. Only a few details remain. A touch of color here. A darker line there. Small adjustments. The sort of work most visitors may never notice. Yet the painter notices. That is enough. Hours pass quietly. The sun reaches its highest point. The signal for the midday break eventually arrives. The painter sets down his brush and stretches carefully. His back responds with familiar stiffness. His shoulders ache. His knees protest slightly. age has become a companion. Not an enemy. Simply a companion. Always present. Always reminding him that years continue to pass. He walks toward the entrance with the other workers. The brightness outside feels startling after the dim tomb chambers. Sunlight floods the valley. The sky appears impossibly blue. Heat shimmers above the desert floor. The workers gather beneath shaded shelters. Water jars are opened. Meals are shared. The painter settles onto a low stone seat. Nearby, several younger laborers laugh about something that happened earlier in the morning. Their energy reminds him of his own youth. At that age, exhaustion seemed temporary. Recovery felt effortless. A night's sleep could solve almost anything. Now recovery arrives more slowly. The body requires more patience. Still, the painter remains grateful. He can work. He can support his family. His hands remain steady. Many older workers are not so fortunate. A gentle wind drifts across the settlement. Dust moves lazily through the sunlight. The painter closes his eyes for a few moments. Not sleeping. Simply resting. Listening. The sounds around him blend together. Quiet conversation. The creak of wooden tools. Footsteps. Distant voices. The endless whisper of wind moving across stone. The desert possesses its own kind of silence. Not complete silence. A living silence. One made from many small sounds existing together. The break eventually ends. Workers rise slowly. Meals are finished. Water jars are sealed. Another portion of the day awaits. The painter returns underground. The familiar coolness welcomes him once more. Inside the tomb, the lamps have already been relit. Their warm glow fills the chamber. The painted figures seem to emerge from the shadows. Waiting patiently, the painter resumes his work. This afternoon he begins a new section. A scene showing boats traveling along the Nile. The outlines have already been prepared. Now color must bring them to life. He starts with the water. Ancient artists rarely paint water exactly as it appears. Instead they use patterns and symbols to represent its movement. The painter follows traditions passed down through generations. His brush creates careful lines. Wave after wave. Pattern after pattern. The river begins to appear. As he works, memories return. He remembers childhood journeys upon the Nile. Trips to nearby settlements. Watching fishermen cast nets into calm water. Listening to reeds rustle along the shore. The river has always been present. Like the sky. Like the desert. Like the sun. Some parts of life become so familiar that people rarely stop to think about them. Yet they shape everything. Without the Nile, much of Egypt could not exist. The painter understands this deeply. Every season depends upon it. Every harvest depends upon it. Even these tomb paintings depend upon it. The grain feeding workers comes from river-fed fields. The boats carrying supplies travel upon its waters. The life of the valley flows from the river outward. Hour by hour, the painted Nile grows across the wall. Soon boats appear. Then oars. Then workers. The scene begins telling its story. The painter steps back occasionally to study the overall balance. Large compositions require careful planning. A beautiful detail means little if the whole scene feels crowded or uneven. Years of experience guide his decisions. Not every choice can be explained. Some are simply felt. The afternoon drifts onward. The lamps continue burning. The shadows continue shifting. The painter's brush continues moving. Steady. Patient. Unhurried. Beyond the tomb, the sun slowly begins descending toward the western horizon. Long shadows gradually return to the desert. The day's final hours approach. But inside the chamber, work continues peacefully. The painted boats glide across their painted river. Workers carry grain through painted fields. Birds stand among painted reeds. And little by little, beneath the quiet cliffs of ancient Egypt, another piece of the tomb wall painter's life becomes part of the stone, preserved through careful labor and the endless patience of ordinary hands. The afternoon slowly begins to soften. Deep within the tomb, the painter continues working beneath the steady glow of oil lamps. Outside, the desert sun has started its long journey toward the western horizon. The heat remains strong, but its sharp edge is beginning to fade. Inside the chamber, time seems to move differently. The painter notices this often. A few careful brush strokes can occupy an entire hour. A single figure may require half a day. A large scene can consume weeks. Yet the passing time rarely feels wasted. Each small effort becomes part of something larger. The wall before him continues to grow. The painted Nile stretches across the plaster. Boats glide along its surface. Workers stand beside cargo. Birds rest among reeds. The scene feels peaceful, orderly, balanced. The painter pauses for a moment and studies the composition. This habit has become more frequent with age. When he was younger, he often focused only on the section directly in front of him. Now he steps back more often. He looks at the entire wall. He considers how every part connects to the next. Experience has taught him that patience often reveals things hurried eyes miss. Nearby, an apprentice struggles with a section of decorative border. The repeating pattern refuses to remain even. Some shapes are slightly larger than others. The spacing drifts. The young worker sighs quietly. The painter notices. Without criticism, he walks over. Together they examine the pattern. The painter points to a few small details. The apprentice nods. Then begins again. Slowly. Carefully. This time the design improves. The painter offers a faint smile before returning to his own work. Teaching rarely requires many words. Often it requires only attention. The afternoon continues. The tomb remains calm. Far beyond these chambers, Egypt lives its ordinary life. Farmers work beside irrigation channels. Fishermen guide boats through river waters. Merchants arrange goods in market areas. Families prepare evening meals. Children play in dusty pathways. The painter cannot see any of this from inside the tomb. Yet he knows it is happening. His paintings are filled with such scenes because they surround him every day. The world outside becomes the world upon the walls. A breeze moves faintly through one of the corridors. The lamp flames tremble. Shadows shift gently across the painted figures. For a brief moment, it almost seems as if the people upon the walls are moving. The illusion passes quickly. Yet it leaves behind a curious feeling. The painter has spent so much of his life creating images that sometimes they feel strangely familiar. Like distant companions. Faces he has known for years. Some figures he painted months ago. Others years ago. Their expressions never change. Their tasks never end. The fisherman always casts his net. The farmer always harvests grain. The boatman always guides his vessel along painted waters. In a way, they exist outside time. The painter wonders about this occasionally. Then he returns to work. Practical matters always demand attention. A pigment bowl requires refilling. A brush needs cleaning. A line requires correction. The simple realities of labor leave little room for long reflection. As the hours pass, the chamber grows quieter. Many workers become deeply focused. Voices fade. Only the sounds of craftsmanship remain. Brushes touching plaster. Sandals shifting against stone. Tools being carefully placed aside. The rhythm feels almost musical. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just steady. The painter enjoys this atmosphere. Some people seek excitement. Others seek peace. After many years, he has come to appreciate peace. There is comfort in familiar work. Comfort in known routines. Comfort in knowing what the next hour will likely contain. The painter begins detailing one of the boats. Its wooden structure requires careful attention. The vessel carries baskets filled with grain. Several workers stand aboard. Their clothing must be outlined. Their faces require simple features. The ropes must appear strong. The cargo must appear secure. None of these details are difficult individually. Yet together they demand concentration. One small mistake can affect the balance of the entire scene. The painter's hand remains steady. Years of practice guide every movement. His fingers know these motions almost without thought. The brush feels like an extension of himself. He no longer remembers exactly when this happened. Perhaps it occurred gradually. Year after year. Project after project. Until skill became habit. The afternoon light outside begins changing. Though hidden within the tomb, the workers sense it. The day carries a different feeling now. The final work hours have arrived. The painter stretches briefly. His shoulders ache. A familiar ache. One he accepts without complaint. Most workers carry similar burdens. Stonecutters have sore hands. Laborers have tired backs. Farmers have aching knees. Years of effort leave traces upon every body. The painter considers himself fortunate. His work is demanding, but it also contains beauty. Few people spend their days surrounded by colors. Few people watch entire scenes emerge from blank walls. There is satisfaction in that. Eventually a fellow craftsman approaches. The two men have worked together for many years. Their friendship has grown through shared routines rather than dramatic moments. The craftsman asks about the progress of the river scene. The painter shows him. They exchange a few observations. A suggestion about color. A comment about spacing. Then the conversation ends naturally. No lengthy discussion is needed. Both understand the work. Both understand each other. Such friendships often develop among people who spend years working side by side. The silence between them feels comfortable. Not empty. Comfortable. The painter returns to his section. The river scene nears completion. Only a few details remain. A cluster of reeds. A bird near the shoreline. Several small corrections. The sort of finishing work that often takes longer than expected. Yet he does not mind. The process itself brings satisfaction. Outside, the sun continues sinking. The cliffs begin glowing with warm evening colors. Long shadows stretch across the valley. Workers in fields begin gathering tools. Fishermen guide boats toward shore. Families prepare for another evening together. The painter cannot see these scenes. But he knows them well enough to imagine them. Eventually the signal comes. The workday is ending. Brushes are set aside. Pigments are covered. Tools are organized for tomorrow. The painter cleans his equipment carefully. A neglected brush can become useless. A spilled pigment can waste valuable resources. Experience teaches respect for tools. They serve faithfully when cared for properly. Before leaving, he steps back one final time. The painted river scene now feels complete. The boats rest peacefully upon the water. The workers stand beside their cargo. The reeds sway silently. The birds watch from the shore. The wall has changed greatly since morning. A quiet satisfaction settles within him. Not pride. Not excitement. Simply the calm feeling of work honestly done. The painter gathers his belongings. Together with the other workers, he begins walking toward the tomb entrance. The daylight waiting outside feels warm and golden. Evening has arrived. The sky glows softly above the desert. The air feels cooler. More forgiving. The painter pauses briefly outside the entrance. The vast landscape stretches before him. Cliffs. Sand. Sky. Far beyond, the green ribbon of life along the Nile. The view never grows old. He has seen it thousands of times. Still, he appreciates it. Some sights reveal new beauty through repetition. The walk home begins. Sand crunches beneath sandals. Workers spread out along the familiar path. Conversations remain quiet. Everyone carries the pleasant tiredness that follows a full day of labor. Ahead, the village waits. Cooking fires will soon fill the evening air with familiar smells. Children will play beneath fading sunlight. Neighbors will gather outside their homes. The stars will eventually appear. The river will continue its endless journey through the darkness. And the tomb wall painter, like countless ordinary people across ancient Egypt, will return home beneath the gentle colors of evening, carrying with him another day of careful work hidden deep within the silent desert cliffs. The path home winds quietly between the desert and the fertile lands of the Nile. The painter walks at an easy pace beside several other workers. No one feels much desire to hurry. The hardest hours of the day have already passed. The air grows cooler with every step. The long shadows cast by the cliffs stretch farther across the ground, slowly reaching toward the green fields below. The evening sky glows with soft colors. Pale gold near the horizon. Gentle shades of orange. Faint traces of rose-colored light lingering above the valley. The painter enjoys this time of day. Morning carries anticipation. Midday carries effort. Evening carries relief. The desert itself seems calmer now. The fierce brightness that covered the landscape only a few hours ago has softened into something peaceful. As he walks, the painter notices a shepherd guiding a small group of goats toward home. Dust rises gently beneath their hooves. The animals move slowly, tired from the day's grazing. The shepherd follows behind them with patient steps. Farther away, a farmer closes a gate near an irrigation channel. A pair of children carry bundles of reeds toward their family's house. Along the riverbank, several fishermen pull boats onto shore. Everywhere, the work of the day is ending. The painter reaches the edge of the cultivated land. Immediately the air feels different. The scent of growing crops replaces the dry smell of stone and sand. The sound of insects rises from the fields. Water moves quietly through narrow channels. The Nile itself reflects the fading light of the sky. The painter pauses beside the river for a moment. Not because he is tired. Though he is. Not because he must stop. But because he enjoys these brief moments. The surface of the water glimmers softly. Small ripples drift across the current. A bird lands among the reeds nearby. The evening breeze moves through the plants, creating a sound like a whisper. The river has been part of his life for as long as he can remember. When he was a child, he played along its banks. As a young apprentice, he crossed its waters while traveling for work. As a husband and father, he has depended upon its gifts. The river asks for patience. It follows its own rhythms. It cannot be hurried. The painter appreciates this. Much of life seems to move in the same way. The best things often arrive slowly. Skill arrives slowly. Friendship arrives slowly. Trust arrives slowly. Even the paintings inside the tomb emerge one careful layer at a time. The painter eventually resumes his journey. The village lies ahead. Its familiar shapes become clearer as he approaches. Mud brick homes catch the final light of day. Thin trails of smoke rise from cooking fires. Voices drift through the evening air. Children run between narrow pathways. A dog barks somewhere in the distance. The village feels alive. Comfortably alive. The painter enters a familiar lane and passes neighbors sitting outside their homes. Some wave. Others offer simple greetings. A few are busy with evening chores. Repairing baskets. Preparing food. Mending clothing. Daily life continues even after the workday ends. The painter reaches his home just as the first stars begin appearing overhead. His family is already gathering for the evening meal. The smell of fresh bread welcomes him. So does the sound of laughter. His youngest child is telling a story. A very serious story, at least from the child's point of view. Something involving a bird, a lost sandal, and an argument between friends. The details seem somewhat unclear. The enthusiasm is not. The painter smiles and listens. The child speaks quickly. The story becomes longer with every sentence. Everyone listens patiently. By the end, nobody is entirely certain what happened. Yet everyone seems pleased. The meal begins. Simple food fills simple bowls. Bread remains the center of the table. Vegetables provide flavor. A little fish adds variety. The family eats together beneath the growing darkness. Conversation flows naturally. No one rushes. The day has already demanded enough effort. Now comes the quieter part. The part many people cherish most. Time shared with family. Time spent at home. Outside, the village gradually settles into its evening rhythm. The sounds of labor disappear. The sounds of rest take their place. Neighbors gather nearby. Stories are exchanged. News travels from one household to another. A traveler passing through the area becomes the subject of discussion. Someone speaks about a relative in another village. Someone else describes unusual weather from years ago. The painter listens more than he speaks. He has always been this way. His profession encourages observation. Painters spend much of their lives watching. Watching people. Watching movement. Watching light. Watching small details others might miss. Tonight he watches the stars. They continue appearing one by one. Soon the entire sky seems filled with them. The darkness above the Nile Valley feels deep and endless. The painter often finds comfort in the night sky. The stars remain unchanged while human lives move forward. Children grow older. Workers retire. Families change. Villages change. Yet the stars continue their quiet journey overhead. A cool breeze passes through the village. Palm leaves rustle softly. The sound reminds the painter of brushes moving across plaster. Slow. Gentle. Steady. His thoughts drift toward the tomb once more. Tomorrow he will continue working on a new section of wall. Several scenes remain unfinished. There are fields to paint, boats to decorate, birds to outline, figures to complete. Weeks of work still lie ahead. Perhaps months. Large projects require patience. No craftsman expects otherwise. Eventually the gathering outside begins to fade. Families return indoors. Conversations grow quieter. The village slowly prepares for sleep. The painter rises and enters his home. An oil lamp burns softly near the wall. Its flame casts warm light across the room. The children are already becoming sleepy. One rubs tired eyes. Another struggles to finish a final thought before drifting into silence. The painter sits for a few moments before lying down. His body feels heavy. Not unpleasantly heavy. The kind of heaviness earned through honest work. His hands still carry faint traces of pigment despite repeated washing. Blue remains near one fingernail. A touch of red lingers along a knuckle. Such marks rarely disappear completely. Years of painting have left their presence everywhere. In his hands. In his posture. In his habits. In the way he sees the world. The lamp flame flickers gently. The room grows quieter. Outside, the Nile continues flowing beneath the stars. A distant boatman calls out across the darkness. Then silence returns. The painter closes his eyes. Sleep approaches gradually. Like evening arriving over the desert. Slowly. Patiently. Without hurry. His breathing becomes steady. The sounds of the village fade. The sounds of the river fade. The thoughts of unfinished paintings fade. For a few hours, rest takes the place of labor. The tomb walls wait patiently in the darkness beneath the cliffs. The pigments rest in their bowls. The brushes lie still. The desert watches beneath the moonlight. And somewhere beyond the sleeping village, the Nile continues its endless journey through the ancient land, carrying cool night air across the valley while the tomb wall painter drifts peacefully into another quiet Egyptian night. The night drifts onward above the Nile Valley. Moonlight rests softly upon the river. The water carries silver reflections through the darkness as it moves quietly between sleeping villages and silent fields. Palm trees stand motionless beneath the stars. The desert cliffs watch from afar, pale and still beneath the gentle glow of the moon. Most of the valley sleeps. The fishermen rest. The farmers rest. The builders rest. The merchants rest. And inside a small mud brick home, the tomb wall painter sleeps as well. His breathing is slow. His hands, so busy during the daylight hours, are finally still. For a little while, there are no pigments to mix. No walls to decorate. No ladders to climb. Only rest. The kind of rest that comes after a full day of labor. The kind of rest known by ordinary people throughout every generation. Outside, the night remains peaceful. Occasionally a breeze moves through the reeds along the riverbank. Sometimes a bird calls from the darkness. Sometimes distant water laps gently against the shore. Otherwise, silence holds the valley. The hours pass. The stars continue their slow journey overhead. Eventually the deepest part of the night begins to fade. A faint light appears far in the east. At first it is barely noticeable. A subtle change in the darkness. Then the horizon grows slightly brighter. The world begins preparing for another day. Inside the village, a rooster greets the approaching dawn. A door creaks open somewhere nearby. A few early risers begin moving through the quiet streets. The painter opens his eyes. For a moment he remains still, listening. The morning always arrives gradually, never all at once. The air feels cool, pleasantly cool. Perhaps the coolest it will be all day. He sits up slowly. His body reminds him of yesterday's work. His shoulders are stiff. His knees feel heavy. His hands ache faintly. These sensations are familiar companions. They greet him almost every morning. The painter accepts them without complaint. Age teaches many forms of acceptance. Nearby, his wife is already awake. The small sounds of preparation fill the room. Grain being ground. Water being poured. Bread being arranged. The beginning of another ordinary day. The painter steps outside. The village exists in that quiet moment between night and morning. The sky glows softly. Stars remain visible overhead, though fewer now. The eastern horizon shines with pale gold. The painter enjoys these moments. The world feels calm, unhurried, almost suspended between yesterday and today. A neighbor passes carrying water jars. They exchange greetings. Another worker walks toward the well. Several dogs wander lazily through the village paths. The day has not fully awakened yet. Soon enough it will. But not quite yet. The painter washes his face with cool water. The sensation feels refreshing. Dust and sleep disappear. His mind becomes clearer. The smell of baking bread drifts through the air. Cooking fires begin appearing throughout the village. Thin trails of smoke rise into the brightening sky. Soon families gather for simple breakfasts. The painter joins his own family. The meal is modest. Bread. A few vegetables. Water. Enough to begin the day. His children speak quietly. They are still waking up. Their voices carry the softness of early morning. The painter listens and smiles. These peaceful family moments matter to him. Work occupies much of life. Yet home gives meaning to the effort. Without family, the long days would feel very different. After breakfast, preparations begin. Sandals are adjusted. Tools are gathered. Goodbyes are exchanged. The painter steps outside once more. The sun has now appeared above the horizon. Golden light spreads across the valley. The fields glow softly. The river reflects the sky. The distant cliffs begin warming beneath the first sunlight. Another day has arrived. The familiar walk toward the tombs begins. Workers emerge from every direction. Some travel alone. Others walk in small groups. The path fills gradually. Conversations remain relaxed. Morning energy has not fully arrived. People save their strength. The desert waits ahead. As the painter walks, he notices details he has seen countless times before. A palm tree bending slightly toward the river. A cluster of birds lifting from the reeds. The patterns left by wind across sandy ground. These sights have become part of his daily life. Yet he still notices them. Perhaps because painters are observers by nature. The world provides endless details for those willing to look closely. The journey continues. The green fields slowly give way to desert stone. The fertile land narrows. The cliffs rise ahead. Their surfaces glow softly in the morning sun. The work settlement soon comes into view. Workers arrive steadily. Activity begins. Tools are organized. Supplies are distributed. Water jars are inspected. The familiar rhythm resumes. Inside the workshop, apprentices have already begun preparing pigments. The sound of grinding stone fills the room. The painter pauses to examine the materials. Red ochre, yellow pigment, black carbon, green mineral powders, blue pigments carefully preserved. The colors seem almost alive in the morning light. Even after many years, the painter appreciates their beauty. Colors possess a quiet power. They transform stone into stories. They transform walls into worlds. Without them, the tomb would feel empty. Soon the painter gathers what he needs and enters the tomb once more. The cool air welcomes him. The lamps are lit. Their flames flicker gently. The familiar scent of oil, plaster, dust, and pigment fills the corridors. He walks deeper inside. The chamber awaits. The painted figures wait. The unfinished walls wait. Everything remains exactly where he left it yesterday. The painted river stretches across the wall. The boats rest upon its surface. The workers carry their grain. The birds stand among the reeds. The scene appears peaceful in the lamplight. The painter studies it carefully. A craftsman never begins immediately. First comes observation. First comes understanding. Then comes action. He notices a small adjustment that should be made. A line slightly too thick. A color requiring balance. Nothing serious. Only the sort of detail experience teaches a person to see. The painter makes the correction. Then another. The wall improves. Slowly. Almost invisibly. Such progress often goes unnoticed by outsiders. Yet these tiny refinements separate good work from excellent work. The morning unfolds. The painter begins work on a new section. This scene will depict workers harvesting grain. A familiar subject. One deeply connected to life along the Nile. The outlines already cover the plaster. Now color must bring the figures into existence. The painter mixes pigment carefully. His brush touches the wall. The first stroke appears. Then another. The harvest scene begins. A worker bends toward the grain. Another gathers bundles. A third carries a basket. Simple actions. Ordinary actions. Yet these ordinary moments sustain entire communities. The painter understands this. Perhaps that is why he enjoys painting such scenes. They remind him that history is not made only by rulers and officials. History is also made by countless ordinary hands. Hands that plant. Hands that harvest. Hands that build. Hands that paint. The morning grows brighter outside. Inside the tomb, the harvest slowly takes shape upon the wall. One careful stroke follows another. One figure follows another. The painter works patiently, surrounded by silence, lamplight, and stone. And deep beneath the desert cliffs, far from the busy world above, another peaceful day in the life of the tomb wall painter begins to unfold. The morning settles gently over the valley as the sun climbs higher above the eastern horizon. Outside the tomb, light spreads across the desert cliffs. Their rocky faces glow with warm shades of gold and pale ember. The air grows warmer with each passing hour. Along the Nile, fishermen guide small boats through calm waters while farmers begin another day among the fields. Inside the tomb, however, the world remains cool and dim. The painter stands quietly before the harvest scene. His brush moves with practiced confidence. The workers upon the wall slowly emerge from the plaster. A bent figure gathering grain. Another carrying a bundle across one shoulder. Several more standing among tall stalks swaying in an imagined breeze. The painter has seen such scenes countless times in real life. Every harvest season brings familiar sights. Fields filled with workers. The smell of cut grain. The sound of conversation drifting across open land. The rhythm of labor repeated from sunrise until evening. Because these moments are familiar, they are easy to paint. Not because the work itself is simple, but because he understands it. The movements feel real to him. The postures feel natural. He knows how tired shoulders look after a long day. He knows how workers stand while resting for a moment beneath the sun. These details find their way into his paintings without effort. The painter steps back. He studies the wall carefully. A harvest scene should feel balanced. The figures must guide the eye naturally from one side to the other. Nothing should seem crowded. Nothing should feel empty. Such decisions cannot always be explained. Years of practice have taught him to trust his instincts. Nearby, another artist works on a decorative border running along the upper section of the chamber. The repeated pattern stretches for many lengths of the wall. Lotus flowers. Geometric shapes. Simple symbols arranged with careful precision. The painter watches for a moment. Such work requires patience of a different kind. Repetition can become tiring. Yet beauty often emerges through repetition. The same is true for much of life. The same path walked every day. The same river viewed every morning. The same tasks performed year after year. What seems repetitive often becomes comforting. The painter returns to his own section. His brush dips into pigment. Color spreads gently across the plaster. The harvest scene grows richer. More complete. The morning continues. The lamps flicker steadily. Shadows shift softly upon the walls. From deeper inside the tomb come occasional sounds of work. A brush against stone. A quiet conversation. The careful movement of tools. The chamber feels peaceful. Almost separate from the outside world. The painter often notices this feeling. When he enters the tomb each morning, the concerns of everyday life seem to fade for a while. Not disappear completely. Only grow quieter. The need for repairs at home. The cost of grain. The future of his children. These thoughts remain. But the work requires attention. The wall demands focus. For a few hours, painting becomes the center of everything. An apprentice enters carrying fresh pigment. The young worker places several bowls nearby. Then pauses to watch. Many apprentices enjoy observing experienced painters. The movement of the brush appears effortless. Though the apprentice knows it is not. Skill always looks easier than it truly is. The painter notices the young man's curiosity. Without stopping his work, he explains a small detail. How to create smoother transitions between colors. How to avoid leaving visible brush marks. The apprentice listens carefully. Then nods. Small lessons accumulate over time. One day the apprentice may become a master craftsman himself. If that happens, these quiet moments will have helped shape him. The painter remembers his own teacher. An older artist with patient hands and a calm voice. Many years have passed since then. The old master is gone now. Yet traces of his instruction remain in every brush stroke. Knowledge travels through generations like water flowing through the Nile. Always moving forward. Never standing still. The morning advances. Outside, the heat continues building. Inside, the harvest scene nears completion. The painter adds details to bundles of grain. Thin lines. Subtle shadows. Careful highlights. Small touches that bring depth to the image. The figures begin to feel alive. Not truly alive, of course, but convincing. Believable. The painter feels satisfied. Not finished. Satisfied. There is a difference. A craftsman rarely feels completely finished. There is always another adjustment that could be made. Another detail that might improve the work. Learning when to stop is part of the skill. Eventually a short break arrives. The painter stretches his back. His joints respond with familiar stiffness. He walks toward the entrance corridor. A little fresh air feels welcome. Several workers stand nearby drinking water. Conversation remains quiet. The day still feels young. Energy remains. The painter drinks slowly. The water tastes cool. Refreshing. For a few moments he studies the view beyond the tomb entrance. The desert stretches outward beneath the sun. The cliffs cast shrinking shadows. The sky appears clear and endless. A hawk circles high above the valley. Its wings barely move. The sight holds his attention. Birds often appear in his paintings. Watching them in life helps him understand them better in art. Observation remains one of his most important tools. Eventually he returns to work. The harvest scene now requires only finishing touches. The painter resumes his place before the wall. The brush moves steadily. A line here. A touch of color there. The image settles into balance. The figures appear complete. The grain fields stretch across the plaster. The workers continue their eternal harvest. The painter steps back once more. He studies the entire composition. A quiet sense of satisfaction fills him. This section is finished. Not perfect. Nothing ever feels perfect. But complete. For now. His attention shifts toward a nearby area of blank plaster. Another scene will appear there soon. Perhaps animals moving through marshland. Perhaps boats traveling along the Nile. Perhaps servants carrying offerings. The possibilities wait patiently. The empty wall holds future work. Future days. Future hours spent beneath the glow of oil lamps. The painter likes this feeling. The sense that there is always more to create. Always another section waiting. Always another story hidden inside the stone. The sun continues climbing outside. The heat deepens across the valley. Soon the midday meal will arrive. Soon workers will gather beneath shaded shelters. Soon conversations will drift through the settlement. But for now, the morning remains. The painter stands quietly before the wall. Brush in hand. Lamplight dancing across painted figures. The scent of pigment and plaster surrounding him. And as another peaceful hour passes within the silent chambers beneath the desert cliffs, the slow life of the tomb wall painter continues exactly as it has for years, steady, patient, and carried forward one careful brush stroke at a time. The midday heat settles over the valley like a heavy, unmoving presence. Outside the tomb, the desert is bright and still. The sun stands high above the cliffs, pouring light across stone and sand until everything seems to glow faintly. Even the air itself feels warm and thick, as if the world has slowed under the weight of the sun. Inside the tomb, the painter pauses his work. The lamps continue to burn, but their light feels softer now compared to the brilliance outside. The chamber holds its coolness, a quiet contrast to the burning world beyond the entrance. The painter sets down his brush. He steps back from the wall slowly. The harvest scene is now complete. Figures stand frozen in eternal labor. Grain is gathered. Baskets are filled. Fields stretch across the plaster in calm order. What began as empty stone now feels like a living memory of the land beside the Nile. He studies it for a long moment. Not with excitement. Not with pride. With quiet acceptance. Another piece of the tomb has been finished. Another small part of eternity has taken shape. Around him, other workers begin to slow as well. The rhythm of the morning naturally fades into rest. The heat outside encourages stillness. Even inside the tomb, people feel the shift. An apprentice stretches his arms carefully. Another worker leans against the cool stone wall, resting his head for a brief moment. Voices become fewer. Movements become slower. The midday break has begun. The painter leaves the chamber and steps toward the entrance. The transition from cool darkness to harsh sunlight is always sharp. For a moment, he squints. The world outside feels almost overwhelming in its brightness. The desert stretches endlessly in every direction. Light reflects off stone and sand, creating a shimmering heat haze in the distance. Workers gather beneath shaded shelters near the settlement. Water jars are opened. Simple meals are shared. Bread. Dates. A little dried fish. Nothing more than what is needed to continue the day. The painter sits quietly in the shade. His body feels tired in the familiar way. Shoulders stiff from reaching. Hands slightly stained with pigment that never fully disappears. He takes a slow drink of water. The coolness moves through him gently, easing the heat that has already begun to gather in his skin. Around him, conversation drifts softly. A worker speaks about repairs needed on his home. Another mentions a family member recovering from illness. A third simply sits in silence, eyes closed, resting. No one raises their voice. The heat does not allow it. Even speech feels slower in this part of the day. The painter leans back against the shade structure. His eyes close for a moment. Not sleep. Only rest. The world around him becomes a mixture of distant sounds. The faint rustle of wind across sand. The soft clink of clay jars. The quiet murmur of tired voices. For a short time, everything feels suspended. Then, slowly, the moment passes. The sun begins its long descent, even if only slightly noticeable at first. The painter opens his eyes. The break is not long. It never is. Work in the tombs follows a steady rhythm that leaves little room for delay. Soon, workers begin standing again. Tools are gathered. Water is stored. Movement returns to the settlement. The painter rises with them. His body protests faintly, but he ignores it. Experience has taught him that the afternoon hours are just as important as the morning ones. Inside the tomb, the air feels welcoming again. Cool. Still. Familiar. The lamps are relit, their flames steady against the stone walls. The painter walks back to his place and studies the unfinished section awaiting him. A new scene is ready to begin. This one will show offerings being prepared for a noble household. Food, flowers, and goods arranged in careful order. He traces the outlines already marked on the plaster. Simple figures waiting to be filled with color. The afternoon work begins slowly. The painter selects his pigments. Red for containers. Yellow for grain and offerings. Green for plant life. Black for outlines and structure. Each color carries meaning, but also discipline. Nothing is placed without intention. As he works, the tomb feels even quieter than before. The deepest heat of the day presses outside, but inside there is only lamplight and steady movement. Brush against plaster. Soft steps. Occasional breathing. Time moves forward in an unhurried way. The painter paints a woman placing offerings on a table. Then a servant carrying a basket. Then small details of food arranged neatly. Every figure follows tradition, yet each is shaped slightly by his own hand. No two painters create exactly the same lines. Even within rules, there is room for individuality. The painter thinks less about this and more about balance. How the scene will appear when complete. How the eye will travel across it. How everything will fit together when viewed as a whole. Outside, the sun begins to shift ever so slightly toward the west. The change is slow. Almost unnoticeable. But it marks the passage of time. Inside the tomb, the painter continues steadily. His brush moves across the wall in calm repetition. One figure after another takes shape. One detail after another becomes part of the larger scene. The offering table grows fuller. The composition becomes more complete. Hours pass without hurry. The painter occasionally pauses to stretch his fingers. He dips his brush into water. He adjusts the pigment. Then returns to work without hesitation. The rhythm of painting has become part of him. Like walking. Like breathing. Like the steady flow of the Nile itself. Eventually, a faint signal of the day's end begins to spread through the settlement outside. Voices become slightly louder as workers prepare to finish their tasks. Movement increases. Tools are gathered once more. Inside the tomb, the painter notices the shift without needing to be told. He steps back from the wall. The offering scene is nearly complete. Only small details remain. A final line here. A subtle shading there. The kind of finishing touches that bring quiet harmony to the image. He completes them carefully. Then pauses. The wall now feels balanced. Whole. Calm. The painter lowers his brush. He studies the work for a long moment. The offering scene stands beside the harvest scene from earlier in the day. Two parts of a larger world. Both now complete. Both resting quietly within stone. A sense of calm satisfaction settles over him once again. The work of the day is nearing its end. Outside the tomb, the light has begun to soften. The heat loosens its grip on the valley. The desert prepares for evening. Inside, the painter gathers his tools slowly. There is no rush. There is never a rush at this hour. He cleans his brushes. He covers pigment bowls. He prepares everything for tomorrow. Then he walks toward the entrance with the other workers. Stepping out into the fading light, he feels the familiar shift from underground stillness to open air. The sky beyond the cliffs glows gently. The day is ending. And as the painter begins his walk home once more, the valley of the Nile quietly breathes out, releasing the long heat of the day into the coming night, while another day of careful work settles into the silent memory of the desert stone. Evening arrives slowly over the Nile Valley, like a soft curtain being drawn across the world. The desert cliffs no longer burn with the sharp brightness of midday. Instead, they glow gently, holding the last warmth of the sun within their stone. Shadows stretch long and thin across the sand, reaching toward the green fields that border the river. The painter walks home with the other workers. Their footsteps are unhurried. No one speaks much at first. The body carries the quiet weight of a full day's labor, and even conversation feels like something to be used sparingly. Ahead of them, the Nile begins to reflect the colors of the sky. Soft orange fading into pale gold. Then deeper tones of amber. And finally the first hints of twilight blue. The river moves as it always does. Slow. Patient. Endless. The painter often thinks of it as something older than memory itself. It was here before him. It will remain after him. Along the path, small details of evening life appear once again. A group of children chasing each other between houses. A woman pouring water into clay jars for the night. A farmer closing a storage shed carefully to protect grain. A donkey tied near a fence, shifting its weight as it rests. Everything feels familiar. Everything feels gently repeated. The painter passes through these scenes like someone walking through a well-known story. Not rushed. Not surprised. Simply present. The village becomes livelier as he approaches. Cooking fires are already burning in several homes. Thin trails of smoke rise into the evening sky. The smell of bread returns, warm and comforting. Some families are already eating. Others are still preparing. The painter reaches his home as the sky deepens in color. His children notice him immediately. Their tired energy turns into quiet excitement. Small voices fill the space around him. A story begins again. Something about the day. Something small and important in the way only children understand importance. He listens while removing his sandals. His wife looks up from the cooking fire and smiles faintly. She does not ask many questions. She already understands most of his day without needing words. The painter sits down slowly. His legs feel heavier than they did in the morning. Not painful. Just tired in the way that comes from steady, repeated work. The evening meal is simple, as always. Bread still warm from baking. A small portion of vegetables. Perhaps a little fish shared among the family. Water poured into clean clay cups. Everyone eats together. Slowly. Comfortably. The world outside the home grows darker as they eat. Night approaches, but it does not feel threatening. It feels familiar. A natural continuation of the day. After the meal, the painter steps outside. The village has begun to settle into its nighttime rhythm. Voices are quieter now. Movements slower. Some people sit outside their homes enjoying the cool air. Others have already gone inside. The sky above is now filled with stars. Countless points of light scattered across deep darkness. The painter looks upward for a long moment. The stars do not change. They do not hurry. They simply remain. There is comfort in that thought. He sits beside his home for a while. The ground beneath him still holds the warmth of the day. The air, however, is cooler now. A gentle breeze moves through the palm trees. Somewhere nearby, a dog lies down with a soft sigh. The painter's thoughts drift, as they often do at this hour. Back to the tomb. Back to the walls. Back to the quiet scenes he shaped with his hands. The harvest fields. The river boats. The offering tables. All of them now resting in painted silence beneath the cliffs. He remembers small details. A line that came out just right. A color that blended smoothly. A moment where the entire scene seemed to come together without struggle. These memories are not dramatic. They are quiet. But they stay with him. A neighbor passes by and greets him softly. The painter replies in the same gentle tone. No one raises their voice. The night encourages softness. Eventually, the village grows still. One by one, lights fade inside homes. Doors close. Sounds disappear. The painter returns indoors. His children are already asleep. His wife extinguishes the last lamp. The room becomes dim, then darker, until only faint shapes remain. He lies down on his sleeping mat. His body settles into rest with practiced ease. Outside, the Nile continues its slow movement through the night. Invisible now, but present. Always present. The painter closes his eyes. His breathing slows. The day begins to fade from his thoughts. The tomb. The brush. The pigments. The figures on the wall. All of it drifts gently away, like sand carried by a soft wind. Sleep comes without effort. Not sudden. Not heavy. Just gradual. Like the closing of a long and peaceful day. The village sleeps beneath the stars. The river flows quietly beside it. And deep within the silent rhythm of ancient Egypt, another day ends exactly as countless others have ended before it, softly, steadily, and without disturbance, carrying the tomb wall painter into rest once again beneath the calm night of the Nile Valley. Night lingers gently over the Nile Valley, holding the land in a calm and steady darkness. The village sleeps in quiet layers. Homes made of mud brick rest under the soft glow of stars. Palm trees stand still, their leaves barely moving in the faintest breeze. The river continues its slow journey, reflecting scattered light from the sky like pieces of silver drifting through black water. Inside one of the homes, the tomb wall painter sleeps deeply. His body is still. His breathing is even. The fatigue of the day has settled into him, not as discomfort, but as quiet rest. Outside, time passes without urgency. The world does not change quickly here. It shifts in small, almost unnoticeable ways. A cloud moves across the moon. A bird stirs briefly before settling again. The wind travels across fields and reeds, then fades. Everything remains calm. The hours move forward. Eventually, the edge of night begins to soften. Far in the east, the darkness grows lighter. At first it is only a faint change, a gentle thinning of the sky. Then the horizon begins to glow. The first suggestion of morning appears, subtle and patient. Inside the village, a rooster calls out. A sound that breaks the silence without disturbing it too much. It feels natural. Expected. The painter stirs in his sleep. Not yet awake. Just moving slightly as his body senses the approaching morning. Moments pass. The sky continues to brighten. Stars begin to fade one by one. The night slowly steps aside for the coming day. At last, the painter opens his eyes. He remains still for a few breaths. Listening. The village is beginning to wake again. The rhythm returns. Always the same rhythm. Morning never arrives suddenly. It grows. It unfolds. The painter sits up carefully. His muscles feel familiar stiffness again. Shoulders slightly tight. Hands slightly tired. Nothing unusual. Just the normal weight of many days of work. His wife is already awake beside him. Soft movement in the dim room. The sound of water being prepared. The quiet beginning of breakfast. Outside, the sky turns pale blue. The eastern horizon brightens. Light spreads slowly over the fields. The river begins to glow. The painter steps outside. The morning air is cool. Refreshingly cool. He takes a deep breath and stands for a moment before starting the day. Other villagers are already moving. A man walks toward the well carrying empty jars. A woman sweeps the front of her home. Children rub sleep from their eyes as they follow their parents. The village returns to life without rush. Everything feels practiced. Everything feels known. The painter washes his face. The cold water wakes him gently. He stands for a moment, letting the morning settle into him. Then he returns inside to eat. The meal is simple again. Bread. A few small foods from the night before. Water. Enough to begin another day. His children are still quiet. Not fully awake yet. Their voices are soft and slow. The painter listens more than he speaks. These small mornings feel important in their own way. A beginning shared together. After eating, the preparations for work begin. Tools are gathered. Sandals are tightened. The painter checks his small collection of brushes. Each one has its own purpose. Some for fine detail. Some for broader lines. Some for finishing touches. He carries them carefully. They are simple tools, but they shape his entire craft. Soon he steps outside into the full light of morning. The sun is rising higher now. Golden light spreads across the valley. The fields shimmer with early brightness. The cliffs in the distance stand quietly, already waiting for another day of labor within them. The walk begins again. The familiar path toward the tombs. Workers gather along the same routes as always. The same faces. The same greetings. The same steady movement toward the desert. No one speaks loudly. Morning energy is still gentle. The painter walks beside a fellow craftsman. They exchange a few quiet words. Nothing important. Just the small talk of daily life. The weather. The work from yesterday. The expectation of today. As they move farther from the village, the green land slowly gives way to stone and sand. The contrast becomes clear. Life on one side of the path. Stillness on the other. Ahead, the cliffs rise again, welcoming them back into their silent chambers. The work settlement appears. Already active. Already organized. The rhythm of the day has begun before them. Inside the workshop, pigments are being prepared once more. Colors ready for another day of painting. The painter pauses briefly, watching the familiar process. Red earth. Yellow minerals. Black carbon. Green stone. Blue powder carefully protected. Each color holds its place in the system of work. He takes what he needs. Then walks toward the tomb entrance. The air grows cooler as he enters. The brightness of the world outside fades behind him. Once again, he steps into the quiet interior of stone. The lamps flicker softly. The walls wait. The unfinished scenes wait. The painter walks deeper inside. His footsteps echo faintly in the corridors. Soon he reaches the chamber where yesterday's work still rests. The offering scene remains complete. The harvest scene remains complete. Together they form a growing story along the wall. Today new sections await attention. He studies them carefully. No rush. Only observation. He chooses where to begin. Then lifts his brush. The first stroke of the new day touches the plaster. And once again, the slow life of the tomb wall painter continues beneath the desert cliffs, carried forward by steady hands, patient breath, and the quiet rhythm of a world that changes only as much as it must, never more, never less. The tomb is quiet again as the painter settles into his work. The lamps burn with a steady glow, their small flames flickering against the stone walls. Shadows move softly across the painted figures from yesterday, as if the scenes themselves are breathing in the dim light. The painter stands before a fresh section of plaster. It is smooth. Empty. Waiting. He studies it for a long time before touching it. This pause is part of his habit now. Not thinking in words, but letting the space speak in silence. The wall always seems to suggest what it wants to become, if a person listens closely enough. Today, he begins a new scene. A small group of workers carrying water jars along a path near the fields. Simple figures. Ordinary movement. The kind of moment that happens every day beside the Nile and is never remembered by anyone for long. But on the wall, it will remain. His brush touches the plaster. A line appears. Then another. Slowly, the figures begin to take shape. Outside the tomb, the sun climbs higher into the sky. Inside, time softens again, becoming something slower than the world above. The painter works without hurry. His hand moves in steady rhythm. Start. Stop. Adjust. Continue. The repetition feels natural to him now, like breathing. Nearby, another craftsman works quietly on a different section. There is no conversation at first. Only the soft sound of brushes and the occasional shift of feet against stone. After a while, the apprentice from earlier approaches again. He watches for a moment, then speaks softly, asking how to keep the water jars balanced on the figure's shoulders. The painter pauses his work. He looks at the apprentice's sketch. Then he gently adjusts a line with his brush, showing how weight should feel in the posture, how the body leans slightly when carrying something heavy but familiar. The apprentice nods. Tries again. Improves. There is no praise spoken. Only understanding shared through repetition. The painter returns to his section. The water carriers now begin to feel real on the wall. Their steps follow a quiet rhythm across the plaster path. One figure leads. Two follow. Another turns slightly, as if listening to something far away in the fields. The painter adds small details. The curve of a shoulder. The tilt of a head. The suggestion of movement in a folded garment. Nothing is loud. Nothing is dramatic. Everything is gentle and restrained. As the morning continues, the tomb holds its steady silence. Outside, the world changes under the sun, but here below the cliffs, it feels distant, almost unrelated. Only the rhythm of labor connects both worlds. Work above. Work below. The painter sometimes thinks about this without fully forming the thought. How life continues in both places at once. How the river flows through all of it, unseen from here but always present in memory. He pauses to dip his brush into pigment. The color is muted earth tone today. Simple. Fitting for daily life scenes. Not the bright ceremonial colors of offerings or gods, but the quiet shades of ordinary existence. Dust. Clay. Soft shadows. He continues painting. Hours move forward without announcement. A section is completed. Then another. The water carriers now stretch across a portion of the wall, their movement forming a calm flow from one side of the chamber to the other. The painter steps back. Studies the composition. It feels balanced. Not finished, but correctly begun. That is enough for now. A deeper calm settles in his chest, the kind that comes after steady progress. Not excitement. Not relief. Just a quiet sense of order. He lowers his brush and stretches his fingers. Outside, the light must be brighter now. The heat heavier. But inside, the tomb remains unchanged. Cool. Still. Patient. The painter glances toward the next empty space on the wall. Another scene will come there later. Perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps in a few days. Time here does not rush. It simply continues. He gathers his thoughts and returns to work, the brush lifting once more, as another small piece of everyday life begins to form in paint upon stone, carried forward by steady hands and the unending, peaceful rhythm of ancient Egypt. The day moves forward outside the tomb, but inside the stone chambers, everything continues in a quieter rhythm. The painter stands before the wall again, his brush already stained with soft earth tones. The water carriers are taking shape across the plaster, and now he begins to refine the space around them. A path is added beneath their feet. Slight variations in ground texture suggest uneven earth worn by many footsteps over time. Each detail is small. Each detail is slow. The painter does not think of the entire scene at once anymore. That way of thinking belongs to younger days. Now he moves in pieces, in fragments, in steady sections of attention. A shoulder here. A shadow there. A line that connects one figure gently to the next. The tomb around him remains still. Lamplight flickers. Stone holds the sound of every brush stroke for a moment before letting it fade. Nearby, a faint sound of scraping stone echoes from another chamber. Someone is preparing plaster for a different section of work. The rhythm of many hands continues, each person focused on their own quiet task. The painter pauses briefly. He steps back. The water carriers now feel more complete. Not finished, but settled into their space on the wall as if they have always been there. He tilts his head slightly, studying the flow of movement. There is a balance forming between the figures and the empty space around them. Too many details would crowd it. Too few would make it feel empty. The painter adjusts nothing yet. He simply observes. Observation comes before correction. Always. A small breeze moves faintly through the corridor from the entrance far behind him. It barely reaches the chamber, but the lamps respond with a slight flicker, their flames bending for a moment before returning upright. The painter continues. He adds a small basket to one of the figures. Then refines the curve of an arm. Then softens the edge of a garment so it feels less rigid. Time passes without clear boundaries. There is no clock here. Only progress. Only the slow appearance of form where there was none before. Eventually, the painter steps away from the wall again. His shoulders feel heavier now, but not in a painful way. More like the weight of steady concentration settling into the body. He rolls his neck slightly, loosening stiffness that has built up over hours of focus. A fellow worker passes behind him. No words are exchanged. Only a brief nod. Everyone here understands the same rhythm. Work. Pause. Work again. Outside the tomb, the sun has moved higher, but its heat feels distant here underground. Still, the body remembers the world above. The painter takes a drink of water from a clay vessel. The coolness moves through him slowly. He closes his eyes for a moment. Not sleeping. Just resting within the silence. In that brief pause, his thoughts drift outward. To the river. To the fields. To his home in the village. To the simple meal from the morning. To the stars that will return again tonight. Everything feels connected in a quiet way. The river feeds the fields. The fields feed the village. The village feeds the workers. The workers shape the tombs. And the tombs, in their silent chambers, hold images of all of it. When he opens his eyes again, the painter returns to the wall. The water carriers are nearly complete now. Only final touches remain. A line to sharpen a shadow. A tone to deepen a basket's edge. A slight adjustment to the spacing between figures so the movement feels natural and unbroken. These are small changes. Almost invisible. but they give the scene its calm strength. The painter makes them one by one. Carefully. Without rush. Elsewhere in the tomb, another section begins to receive attention. He hears faint conversation between apprentices discussing pigment mixtures. One speaks too quickly and is corrected softly by another. The sound fades again into silence. The painter finishes the last adjustment on the water carriers. He steps back once more. Now the figures feel complete. They move across the wall in a steady, quiet procession, carrying water through a world that will never age or change. He exhales slowly. Another piece of the tomb has taken its place. Another fragment of ordinary life preserved in stone. The painter does not linger on the feeling. He simply turns toward the next blank space waiting further along the chamber wall. There is always more to do. More scenes. More space. More time ahead. He lifts his brush again. And in the stillness of the tomb, beneath the endless cliffs of the desert, the slow and careful work continues, one gentle stroke at a time, as another day in the life of the tomb wall painter moves forward without hurry, without noise, and without end. The light inside the tomb feels softer now as the day continues its slow passage outside. Oil lamps burn with a steady patience, their small flames casting warm halos across stone walls that have already begun to fill with scenes of everyday life. The painter stands quietly, his attention returning once again to the next empty section of plaster. It is not large. Nothing in this work feels large anymore. Even wide walls become familiar after enough hours of looking at them closely. He studies the space before him. This section will hold a scene of simple market activity. Not grand trade. Not royal processions. Only the quiet exchange of goods that happens every day in small settlements along the Nile. A woman weighing grain. A man offering fish. A child standing nearby watching everything with patient curiosity. Ordinary life, the kind that rarely leaves a record unless someone like him decides to preserve it. The painter begins with outlines. Light touches of pigment first. Soft marks that define where each figure will stand. The space slowly begins to organize itself. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just gradually becoming something understandable. He draws the woman at the center of the scene first. Her posture is steady. Balanced. One hand extended toward a scale, the other resting near a basket. The painter pauses after each line, checking spacing, adjusting proportions slightly, then continuing. Outside, the world above the tomb has moved further into the afternoon. The heat is likely strong now. The kind of heat that presses down on fields and sand alike, making movement slower, making rest more desirable. Inside, however, the tomb remains unchanged. Cool stone. Soft light. Measured silence. A second worker joins the painter's chamber for a short time. He brings fresh pigment, carefully sealed in small containers. The painter nods in acknowledgement, then continues without breaking rhythm. The work is always shared, but never crowded. Each person has their own section. Their own responsibility. The market scene begins to take shape more clearly now. The woman at the scale is joined by a man holding fish wrapped in cloth. The painter adds the suggestion of texture along the fish's form, using light strokes that hint at scales without defining each one too sharply. Everything is suggestion rather than excess detail. Too much detail would disturb the calm of the image. Balance is always the goal. Balance and clarity. The painter has learned over time that silence can be painted too. Not silence as absence of sound, but silence as calmness within a scene. He steps back again. The figures feel appropriately spaced. The interaction between them seems natural, as if they are engaged in a quiet conversation that cannot be heard but can be understood through posture alone. He makes a small adjustment to the child figure. A slight tilt of the head. A shift in stance that suggests waiting rather than impatience. The child becomes part of the rhythm of the scene rather than separate from it. Time passes in the usual way. Without markers. Without interruption. Only progress. Only subtle change. At some point, the painter realizes that his brush has become lighter in his hand. He dips it again into pigment, noticing how familiar the motion has become. Even the act of reloading color feels automatic now, like breathing or walking. Nearby, faint footsteps echo as another craftsman moves through a connecting corridor. No words are spoken. There is no need. Everyone here understands the shared quiet. The painter continues refining the market scene. He adds a small table between the figures. Then adjusts the positioning of baskets on the ground. Then softens a line where two shapes meet so the transition feels natural rather than abrupt. Each correction is small. Each correction matters. The scene slowly settles into place. Outside, the sun begins its long descent toward the west, though that change is not visible from within the tomb. Still, something in the air shifts subtly. A sense of nearing completion for the day. The painter feels it in his body before he sees it. A slight heaviness in the shoulders. A quiet awareness that time has moved forward again. He pauses once more. Steps back. The market scene now feels alive in its stillness. People gathered. Goods exchanged. A moment of daily life held in permanent calm. He allows himself a brief moment of still observation. Then lowers his brush. Not finished completely, but close enough for the day to end soon. There will always be more to refine tomorrow. That understanding is part of the craft. A supervisor passes through the chamber briefly, glancing at the work without stopping. A small nod follows, then he continues onward. No words needed. The painter returns to organizing his tools. The final portion of the day is approaching. Inside the tomb, the lamps continue to glow steadily as the workers begin the slow transition toward leaving. Brushes are cleaned. Pigments are covered. Stone surfaces are checked one last time before rest. The painter takes a final look at the market scene. It holds together quietly now. A simple moment of exchange preserved in color and line. He turns away. The walk toward the entrance begins again. Step by step, the cool air of the tomb gives way to the faint warmth of the outside world waiting beyond the cliffs. Evening is approaching. The desert will soon soften into dusk. And another day of careful, patient work will settle into memory, carried forward by hands that move slowly, steadily, and without urgency, shaping scenes of ordinary life that will remain long after the painter himself has returned home beneath the quiet stars of the Nile Valley. The painter stops at the mouth of the tomb and looks out into the evening light. The desert is no longer harsh. It has softened into long shadows and warm colors that stretch across the valley. The cliffs glow faintly, as if holding onto the last warmth of the sun before letting it go. Behind him, the tomb rests in silence. The market scene, the water carriers, the harvest fields, and the offering tables all remain inside the stone quiet, complete for now, waiting for the next day's careful additions. The painter steps forward. The air outside feels different immediately. Warmer in a gentle way. Looser. More open. The sky is slowly shifting toward dusk. Pale gold fades into soft orange, and then into deeper tones that signal the coming night. He joins the path back toward the village. Other workers walk beside him, their movements slow and unhurried. No one speaks much. The tiredness of the day rests comfortably in everyone's bodies. Along the way, the river appears again between fields. The Nile moves steadily, reflecting the colors of the sky as if carrying the evening itself along its surface. Small ripples catch the fading light, breaking it into quiet fragments that drift downstream. The painter watches it for a moment as he walks. The river always feels the same at this hour. Calm. Endless. Certain in its direction. The fields nearby are quiet now. Farmers have already finished their work. Tools are gathered. Animals are led home. The land is resting after a full day of effort. By the time the painter reaches the village, the first cooking fires are already burning. Thin smoke rises into the evening sky. The familiar smell of bread and simple food fills the air. Life slows again into its evening rhythm. Inside his home, his family is waiting. The painter removes his sandals at the entrance and steps inside carefully. The room is dim but warm. A soft glow comes from a small lamp placed near the wall. His children look up when he enters. Their energy is quieter now, shaped by the end of the day. There is a brief exchange of smiles, small greetings, simple words that carry more feeling than sound. He sits down. The meal is already prepared. Nothing elaborate. Only enough. Bread shared between hands. A simple dish placed in the center. Water poured carefully into cups. They eat slowly together. Outside, the village settles deeper into night. Voices fade. Footsteps disappear. Only the occasional sound of wind moving through palm leaves remains. The painter finishes his meal and sits quietly for a while. His body feels heavy in a comfortable way. Not exhaustion that demands attention, but the kind that signals a day well completed. He listens to the sounds of his home. His children speaking softly. His wife moving around the small space. The distant silence of the village beyond the walls. Everything feels steady. Everything feels familiar. After some time, he steps outside once more. The sky is now darker. Stars are returning one by one, slowly filling the space above the valley. The Nile reflects them faintly, as if holding two skies at once, one above, one below. The painter stands still for a moment. No thoughts that need words. Only quiet awareness. Then he walks a short distance and sits near the edge of his home. The ground is cool now. The air has softened further into night. Around him, the village becomes still again. One by one, lights fade inside homes. The rhythm of the day comes to its natural close. The painter's thoughts drift back briefly to the tomb. To the market scene still drying on the wall. To the water carriers. To the harvest fields. To all the small moments of life he has helped preserve in stone. Not grand stories. Not powerful events. Only ordinary life, carefully observed and gently remembered. He lies down when the time feels right. The lamp inside his home is extinguished. Darkness settles softly around him. His breathing slows. The day dissolves. And as the Nile continues its quiet movement through the night outside, the tomb wall painter slips into sleep once more beneath the endless desert sky, where the stars watch without change and the valley rests in peaceful silence until morning returns again.